Welcome to the Real Estate Marketing Podcast. My name is Jerome Lewis. I'm your host for today. The Real Estate Marketing Podcast is a podcast where we talk real estate, marketing, tech, business, and leadership. We talk these things for real estate agents, real estate investors, and real estate entrepreneurs. The Real Estate Marketing Podcast is a podcast that has two purposes. Purpose number one, to educate and inform our audience and listeners. Purpose number two, Brad, to highlight you, your business, your service, or your product in a way that provides value to you, including market exposure and content creation. With that, we have a very special guest, Brad Blazar. Formerly the CEO of a small oil company, Brad is a highly sought after speaker on the subject of raising capital. Having raised in excess of $2 billion, today he mentors around the world as part of a global coaching business on how to raise funds from high net worth investors to build, buy, and scale a business or fund a special project like real estate. Additionally, he has closed the largest mega million-dollar transaction for multiple leading real estate companies: $9 million, $7.5 million, $5 million for Smart Stop self-storage and national operator of self-storage assets, in addition to $11 million for U.S. Alliance. As a real estate investor himself, he has purchased, rehabbed, and renovated dozens of properties and invests as co-GP or GP in multifamily today. GP is general partner, correct, Brad?
That's correct. Absolutely.
All right.
You bet.
As the author of 3 books, Brad, I love me some books, so I'm going to request a signed copy of one of those books, whatever your best is. His first book, On the Wings of Eagles, Learn to Soar in Life Quickly, become a top-rated #1 read for entrepreneurs on a major literary blog in the UK, while his third book, Winning at the Capital Game, has been shipped all over the world. Additionally, Brad hosts the second highest ranked podcast, according to Yahoo Finance and Yahoo News rated show, Beast Nation, to help cope with COVID-19. Recently recognized for his accomplishments as an entrepreneur, Sir Brad was knighted into Royal Order of Constantine the Great and St. Helen, which recognizes the Principality of, how do I say that, Brad?
It's called Cappadocia, which is a little place over in Turkey.
Okay, Cappadocia and its sovereign nation. This knighting alongside other well-known celebrity figures like Lady Toni Braxton, Sir Ray Charles Jr., Lady Paula Abdul, Sir James Dentley, and more. Brad, that's an impressive bio. I'm excited that you're here. Welcome to the show.
It's great to be here today, Jerome. It's a pleasure.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you for setting up this time. When I was reading your bio and I was getting ready, I was like, man, this is impressive. I'm lucky to have this guy on the show.
Well, it's not every day you're able to talk to somebody that's able to use the noble title, sir, before their name. But yeah, I was knighted about 2 years ago. And, that's definitely an accomplishment I think that everybody would be proud of.
Absolutely, 100%. So we read your bio, Brad, and I would love to hear you take us down a journey. Tell us in your own words how you got to where you got to today. We would love to hear that story.
Yeah, it's really an interesting and an odd story. I, grew up in a traditional middle-class family, like a lot of people, and always knew that I wanted more. Much like Robert Kiyosaki talks about in his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I had a very wealthy uncle that was a self-made entrepreneur, and just kind of seeing him and seeing the things that he was able to do, and more importantly, how he was able to directly impact the lives of other people. I decided to basically bet on myself very early in life. I was studying architecture. I wanted to be an architect, and while I was in school, I got sidetracked, and I ended up responding to an ad in the local newspaper and got hired into a very small oil company. And what the CEO did of that oil company is he taught me how to basically raise capital from high net worth investors, which became a skill that I got very good at very early in my career. And so after doing that for a couple of years, making some good money, putting a little bit money away in savings, at the age of 23, I launched my own oil company. Never having finished my college degree, I basically dropped out of school knowing that I could always go back. And I printed up some letterhead, got some business cards, and got on the phone got a small team of people around me, and we built a pretty nice sized oil company. We were in business well over 10 years, had employees on the payroll. And then in the very late 80s, early 1990s, I'm kind of aging myself now, two major events happened that really changed things. One was oil prices just plummeted. I mean, they got decimated because OPEC had a lot more control back in those days. And then the second thing was the landscape for the tax legislation, the incentives that incentivize people to invest, those changed as well. So for the most part, investor capital just disappeared. And here I was in business, and I said to myself, when you're a business owner, if there are things beyond your control that you can't control, it may make sense to do something else. And so after exploring the options, I just decided to collapse the business. Luckily, we had no debt, so I didn't have to file for bankruptcy. We just closed the doors over a period of time. And I went back to school because I realized, okay, now I got to finish this journey of getting an education so I can do what? So I can get a job, I can support my family. And so when I came out about a year and a half later, after completing my undergraduate degree now in finance, I was very disillusioned because I had been the CEO, I'd been an entrepreneur, and people wanted to hire me. But what I realized, Jerome, is I was highly overqualified, and people wanted to pay me a salary close to what I used to make in a good month. And I just said, I can't live with this. So I took some time to really do what I call soul searching. I looked at myself in the mirror. I asked a lot of questions. And I said, what am I really good at? Like, what's my hard skill? And what I realized was my primary hard skill, what I was really great at, was attracting and raising capital. And I said to myself, I bet that's a skill that people would pay a lot of money for because it's a primary need in most businesses. It's something that most entrepreneurs need or they want to learn. And so I entered a career primarily as a professional capital raiser and went on this journey raising well over $2 billion through my efforts and the efforts of teams that I've assembled and led for some of the largest real estate investment firms and some of the largest financial services companies that exist in the world today. And after I retired a couple of years ago, I started getting contacted by people that wanted me to consult them. Brad, how do I raise money? How do I do what you've done? And so about 3.5, maybe 4 years now, we launched this platform called Capital School that has grown into a global platform with students we mentor and students I coach literally all around the world. And it's really opened up some tremendous opportunities and allowed me to share stages with some of the best speakers, meet some of the greatest people, but more importantly, really partner with individuals and show them how to raise capital so that they can build, buy, or scale a business. Or as I like to say, Jerome, just do something bigger in life. A lot of people have a dream to be doing more, and a lot of times that desire or that dream requires investment capital. They don't have it. They just don't have it. And they go to a bank and maybe they get turned down because they've got poor credit or they don't have a track record or any other number of reasons. And so that inner dream or desire gets extinguished. And they just go along this path, just kind of giving into what life has thrown their way. And, I think that's saddening because we as entrepreneurs or we as individuals should define the life we want to live and be in control of that. And so teaching people that there are other options, how to attract the attention of investors, how to raise money from investors, has really been great because we get so many people after they've raised their first couple 100,000 or their first $1 million to, send me an email, send me a DM, or better yet, they see me at a live event that we're at and they come running up and they're like, oh my God, because of you, you've changed my life. I'm doing all of these things that I never thought I was going to be able to do before. And that's just a great thing. That's really, really humbling.
Well, listen, thank you for sharing that. It's a few things that jumped out that I would love for you to expand upon. But
Yeah.
the first, I know everybody wants to know, everybody likes to raise capital. This is a real estate marketing podcast. We're all real estate investors and involved in real estate somehow. So I would love for you touched on the product and the services you offer, like your program, your community. I would love for you to tell us like more explicitly, like what you do, how we can learn more about raising capital and the programs that you offer, coaching, mentorship courses, anything like that. Could you talk about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. The platform itself has evolved obviously over time. But
Mhm.
today, what I tell people is we can do anything and everything you need related to raising capital. You need a new pitch deck. I've got a team I can go to. We've got 11 artists and illustrators. We can make you look like a multi-million dollar brand and completely repackage you so that when you send your presentation to investors, you don't look like a mom and pop operation. You look like
Mhm.
an institutional, much larger company. Second thing is we can help you launch a fund. A lot of people in real estate or in other businesses, they get to a point where they've been successful and they want to launch a fund. And so today we have the resources. We work with 4 different law firms and we can put together everything from your private placement memorandum to all the legal docs, the filing of all the forms and things with the SEC. And so helping people launch funds is a big part of what we also do. And then we wrap all of that up with a coaching and a mentoring program where we can give you the skills on how to attract investors. We can give you the knowledge so you know what to say to investors. We can teach you how to basically raise capital. Doesn't matter whether you're trying to flip a couple houses or whether you're trying to acquire a portfolio of, commercial real estate assets that might be valued in the millions of dollars. It all comes down to following a proven system, following a proven blueprint. And so that's what we do. Like I say, we do everything from A to Z. Doesn't matter what you need, we can deliver it.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. One of the things I would love to hear you talk about is the difference between raising capital from like friends and family doing one-off stuff versus like what it is that you do, like high net worth individuals being more professional. I would love to hear your insights on that.
So, one of the things that I talk about is a concept called marketing to the one to get in front of the masses. See, when I started my business, and when most people raise capital and start their business, we start raising money from traditional retail investors. These are high net worth accredited individuals. They might be doctors, they might be business owners, entrepreneurs, engineers, different walks of life. And so we're, traditionally getting commitments for 50,000, maybe 80,000, 100, $150,000. Yeah. If you're doing a larger deal where you need to raise a few million, you're aggregating all of that money that you're getting commitments from. And, it's hard work. You'll hopefully get there. What changed my life and my perspective many years ago is I had a good friend in Austin, Texas, which is where I was living at the time. And he was a very small boutique registered investment advisor. And he called me one day. He said, Brad, I've been watching you from the sidelines, and I think what you do would be suitable for some of the clients whose money I manage. And I said, great. So we got together, and over the course of a couple of meetups, he did his due diligence. He got to know me. He got to meet the members of my team. And he got to a place of comfort where we said, okay, let's do a small event together. Why don't you get 12 to 20 of your better clients together at a nice upscale venue? And then I'll come in and I'll give a nice overview and presentation on what my company does and what we do. So we did exactly that. We just, served some wine and some appetizers and hors d'oeuvres. And after the event, Jerome, he did all the work for me. Like he met with each family. He followed up with each person, and in about 2 weeks, he sent me $2.5 million, and a little light bulb went off. And I said, why in the world am I fishing for minnows when I just landed a blue marlin? And so I got my team together and I said, hey guys, we got to go out and find a couple more RIAs like him, because if we can do that, I guarantee we could probably 5 to 10x the amount of money we raise over the next 12 months, because now we're leveraging pre-existing relationships. You see, that one individual had relationships with probably 80 to 100 wealthy, affluent families that we were trying to get ourselves in front of. And so by understanding this concept of marketing to the one to get to the masses and the pre-existing relationships that many professionals have, like CPAs, like registered investment advisors, you can raise much, much more money, much faster, more efficiently. And instead of raising maybe 5 to 10 million a year, now you're raising 50 to 100 million or more a year.
Thank you for sharing that, because that's what I was going to ask you next. I've heard some people talk about raising a couple million, a few million, which is, it's not small. It's not a small amount,
Yeah.
but I've yet to hear anybody say 2 billion. And I would love to hear your insights. Is there a difference between raising the smaller amount that we're mentioning and the bigger amount? Like, should we be strategizing differently? Just want to hear you talk about that, because 2 billion, that's a huge number and that's impressive.
Well, when you leverage the resources of other people, like I just explained, each relationship, each office or each registered investment advisory firm can easily be a $5 to $10 million relationship. One of the other things is to understand the difference between a registered investment advisor and then also a brokerage firm, like a broker dealer. And over the course of my career, I've also built relationships with many broker dealers. And many of these broker dealers now give access to hundreds of financial advisors. So imagine you adopt and employ the strategy where over time you can start building an army of thousands of professionals that every day are representing your deals, representing your fund, and sending you money. You see, that's how we leverage the broker dealer and the investment advisory industry as a fund manager or as a sponsor, so that we can quickly scale and get to a point where now we're raising 100 million, 300 million. And some of the firms that I've actually worked for are now raising close to $1 billion a year. No different than what we were doing back when I was with them. The only difference is now they've gone long in the same direction. They built more relationships with more people. And they've also hired a small team of salespeople that are licensed, that they can pay commissions to actually now go out and tell their story. So, most people that are real estate investors, or better yet, real estate coaches, don't have the same level of expertise that I bring to the table, simply because they've never done any of these things before. But in the environment that I was in as the CEO of an oil company, working with RIAs and broker dealers, I'm able to bring a new skill set to people that want to learn that. And then when they implement that, and when they obviously then employ that in their business, they're able to get significant results.
Thank you. And one of the things I know you do well is leveraging community and social media. Could you talk to us about that as well?
Absolutely. I'm a big believer in leveraging social media. I'm very active there. We post daily, and you have to think about social media and basically community. And what I mean by community is maybe you have a Facebook group, maybe you have a bunch of followers. If you have this community of people basically that are following you, you have become what I call a person of interest. A person of interest is perceived as what? They're perceived as an expert. They're perceived as a subject matter expert. And so whether that's through a podcast, whether that's through a book, whether that's through articles that have been written about you, whether that's about appearances on podcasts similar to yours, you're able to build credibility now with investors. And so by building a community of people, what you now have to be able to do is take that community of followers and those people that raise their hand or that opt in or that are accredited that may now want to potentially invest. You've got to be really good at building a relationship with people. Well, why is that so important? It's because people that invest emotionally. A investment is an emotional buying decision. Okay, people invest with people they know, like, and trust. Once they invest and once they actually commit capital, it becomes a logical decision. They support the decision they made now with logic to back it up. So, understanding this concept of community and building relationships, when you see people that express an interest, you simply reach out to them and you say, hey, why don't we get on a Zoom later this week? Or, if they live in geographic proximity, hey, why don't we grab a cup of coffee or meet for lunch? I'd love to connect with you, love to build that relationship. And then over time, people become capital partners, people invest. Once they do, they're now attached to you and they're attached to the company. And that's where we now can leverage that relationship because there's three types of capital. Let's not forget, there's three types of capital in the world. There's the money, that's what we all typically think about, but there's also intellectual capital and there's relationship capital. So when you get an investor, one of the things that you should be asking that individual is, hey, Jerome, now that you're working with us, who are you connected with that I should also be speaking to? And hopefully Jerome says, oh, I go golfing every week with my golfing buddy, or I've got a neighbor that just sold his business, or I know these other people. And if they do, say, great, well, would you be kind enough to just follow up and make a warm introduction? And so it's connecting people to other people. Why is that so important in real estate? Wealthy people don't hang around with poor people. At least that's what I've seen. They've got country clubs or they've got business associates. They got people that they travel to. And so you leverage these connections, and that makes the raising of capital much easier because now it's a warm referral. Now that person that was referred to you by somebody else is much more inclined to invest because there's a transference of trust. You don't have to develop it from the ground up. That trust is now automatically implied because you've got somebody else telling that person how wonderful you are. Does that logically make sense?
It does logically make sense. And I wanted to ask you, there was 2 times I tried to ask you about the importance of relationships, but you already addressed it. You just took care of that. So that moves me on to my next question.
Yep.
You mentioned two things that I'm highly interested in. Number one, books. So you've written 3 books. I would love for you to tell the audience about your books, why you wrote them, promote them. Tell us about your books, please.
Absolutely. The first book only took me about 30 years to write. It's funny. I actually started writing my first book, which is On the Wings of Eagles, Learning to Soar in Life, back when I was in my 20s, and I never finished it. It just sat there on a floppy disk drive in a drawer in my office. And a couple of years ago, after I had my daughter, I was cleaning out my office and I stumbled across this floppy disk. And I'm like, man, like here I am as a dad telling my daughter that she's always got to finish what she starts. And here's this. I never finished it. And so I kind of dusted it off and I had to go actually to a store that was able to get the book off the floppy disk because we don't use floppy disks anymore. Right. That's how archaic it was, but they were able to retrieve the data and put it now on a USB flash drive. And so I was able to finish the book. When I did it, I self-published. And so I self-published, put it up on Amazon, started selling a few copies here and there. But what really set this in motion in a big way for me was a friend of mine was going to buy the book. And he called me. He said, hey, man, I got to let you know your book is #1. I'm like, where? Like on Amazon, on the New York Times bestseller list. I'd like to know, like, where? He's like, no, apparently over in England, there's this big, huge literary blog, and they just made a list of the top 10 books for young entrepreneurs, and you're #1 on the list. And I'm like, holy cow. So I checked it out. Sure enough, My book was the #1 book on a major literary blog for entrepreneurs over in England. So what I did is I took that information and I started sending it out to all the major universities here in the United States that have business schools and programs of entrepreneurship. And I started getting contacted by the deans or by the school. Hey, Mr. Blazar, thank you so much for sending a copy of your book and that information. Would you like to come and speak to our students? Sure. So I started flying all over the country and not even knowing that I could get paid as a professional speaker. I'm just flying around, driving here and there. And before you know it, I'm getting interviewed on radio shows and then eventually podcasts. And I finally went to my wife and I just said, there's kind of this fork in the road. Like I can see it going in this direction, or I can see that I'm being pulled in this direction. And so I said, I want to go in this direction. I've always kind of had a dream of, being a speaker, being a coach. And so that's really what catapulted the business. And then, of course, I wrote my second book. And then I wrote my third book, which is called Winning at the Capital Game. It's the one that's behind me on the wall that's been shipped all over the world. But the first book, Learn to Soar, is really more about mindset. In that book, I trademarked something. When you have a trademark and you can protect your intellectual property, nobody else in the world can use it. Nobody else can use that. And so this intellectual property that we have trademarked is called the art of beliefology. The word beliefology is a concept that says the life we live, meaning our reality, is really driven and defined by our underlying habits. And so the habits that we do daily support and build for us a belief system. We believe we can do this as a result of the habits that support that. And then that becomes the reality. And I know this to be true because I've actually seen this not only in my own life, but in the life of other people that we've coached. And just to give you a real life example, many years ago, I was coaching an individual that wanted to be a coach, wanted to be a speaker, wanted to get up on stage, and his business wasn't going anywhere. And every time he got on a Zoom with me, he would not turn on the camera. It was kind of odd, just talking to this voice. And after hearing him complain and complain and complain that his business was not really going anywhere or taking off, I asked him why he thought that was the case. And he turned on his camera, and there was a very heavy set man that must have weighed about 480 pounds. And I'm like, well, holy cow, that's the answer. How can you take care of other people and solve their problems when you've got this much larger problem staring you in the face? And so I coached him on weight loss. I said, every day you got to go up, you got to wake up, you got to go for a walk, you got to increase the distance. And over the course of a couple months, he lost about 150 pounds. He got down to a weight that was closer to about 200. And one day, as I was having a coaching call with him, he said, you remember very early, Mr. Blazar, you told me the importance of these things called positive affirmations, where I was supposed to look at myself in a mirror and say positive things. I could never do that because I hated where I allowed myself to be. But today I was able actually to say something, and I'm leaning in like, here it comes. It's going to be so good. And I said, Jason, what was it? He said, I was able to look in the mirror today and say, I am an athlete. And I said, boom, there it is. I said, you see the habits of what you've been doing the last couple of months, working out, going to the gym, walking, created a belief now in your mind that you're an athlete. And so that belief will now support your future. What do athletes do? They work out, they eat nutritiously, and today you wouldn't even recognize him. He could literally be on the cover of Men's Fitness. He's lost about 220 pounds. He's right around 185, 200, looks absolutely great. But that's what that book is all about. It's learning how our habits create a lifestyle and a belief about who we are. And so, you look at the habits of other people that are where you want to be and just follow their example. It's not that hard. And that's why we have coaches and that's why we have mentors, because somebody else has more than likely done what you're wanting to do. And if you just step into their shoes and do the same or similar things, there's a good chance you'll get very similar results.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. I want to get us wrapped up a little bit soon, but I gotta go. I gotta do a selfish plug. I would love to know how I could get a signed copy of your book.
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to send you a copy. Just go ahead, Jerome, at the end of the show here, just
Okay.
shoot us your address
Okay.
and we'll go ahead and we'll sign that. We'll stick it in the mail to you. We'll add some additional things. I've got a bi-monthly magazine that we send out. And so I'll send you a copy of that as well so that you can get a copy of our magazine called Business in Action. But we'd love to send a copy to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And to get us wrapped up, sometimes I know sometimes people reach out to people without any intent on giving back. So when I have my guests here, I like to put them on the spot a little bit. People want to learn from them. They want to gain information. So you as a guest, how can someone add immediate value to you or your business? And it could be as simple as go like my last podcast episode, go purchase a book or a course, anything like that. How can someone add value to you, Brad?
We're always looking for referrals. If you know someone, or better yet, you want to learn how to attract and raise capital, just let us know so we can reach out to that person, or better yet, so that we can get the resources to you. The other is just become a follower. Listen to my show, the Capital Catalyst Show. It's on YouTube. It's on my website. The other way, of course, is just like you're doing, reach out and ask for some of the books. We've got 3 books. I'm working on book number 4 as we speak. I hope to get that out early next year. But it's really just about helping other people, becoming a great connector. I believe that you're just one connection away from finding that one person that can make a major impact or a major change in your life. And so for your listeners and the people that follow your show, just become a follower of me.
Excellent. Thank you. The next question is very similar, but now it's long-term value. How can someone add long-term value to you or your business?
I think the best thing really is to really work on themselves. I'm at a point in life where I don't need much. I'm pretty much
Mhm.
set. But what really helps me and what really, gets me out of bed every day and what gets me motivated is seeing other people help other people.
Mhm.
One thing I've learned on this amazing journey, I've shared stages with the greats, Floyd Mayweather, John Maxwell, Elena Cardone, Brandon Dawson, Jesse Itzler. I mean, I can go on and on. I've written 3 books. I've been knighted alongside people like Tony Braxton, Ray Parker Jr., Paula Abdul. But what really inspires me is seeing people inspire themselves, because it's, I believe, a transference of energy. You see, if you can get excited about something and you can transfer that energy to other people and get them excited, great things happen. And it's sad that we're living in a world today where there's so much war, there's so much hate. Here in the United States, we're kind of at this division between the parties, etc. There's a way that we can resolve that. And it's all about just loving on your other person, be a good neighbor, help other people. And that's really the long-term vision for me, is just, everybody that's a listener, just help other people, man. When I been on this journey, and any coach will tell you this, we get the naysayers, we get the haters on our social posts. They'll put things like, oh, this is a scam, or yeah, right, this guy, raised $2 billion. Why would he be doing what he's doing today? I don't need to be, but so neither does Tony Robbins, neither does Ed Milet, but they're doing it. Why? Because we're here to help people. What I have found is that hurt people hurt other people. Think about that for a second. If somebody is so low in their life that the only way in the moment they can make themselves feel emotionally better, they've got to belittle or critique somebody else, kind of like the bully on the playground. I empathize with that person and I reach out and I say, man, I really empathize with you. You must be at a point in life where you're so low that you had to belittle somebody else, because I've never seen somebody that is doing a big thing in life, or somebody that is accomplished, belittle or say anything negative about another person. They just don't do that. And so, that's a message for any of you out there that have kids that might be getting bullied, or better yet, on the journey, people are saying things about you. Just empathize and just realize hurt people hurt other people. I shared that with my daughter because she's at an age now where, she's obviously in a school as she gets older, where you get the different cliques and the different girls and the different boys, and they pick sides, and of course they say things, and I just said, just don't pay attention to that stuff, honey. They're well below you.
All right, Brad, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. I'm honored that you were here today.
Been great.
Um, if you could close us out with one word, no explanation, what word would that be?
I think the word really that I love uh, is action.
Action. All right,
So,
Brad.
so many
This
people get stuck in quicksand, and what I've found is taking action.
absolutely 100%. I love that word. That's one of my key words. So thank you so much for being here today. You're welcome to come back. You were an absolute pleasure to have here, and I learned a lot from you as well today. Thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me and hosting me today, Jerome.
Absolutely. All right.